All right, folks, this is Founder Laerun, and I am going to discuss Unity and some themed encounters, as well as some player lore and setup, some playability things, what you want to look for, making your stuff look good, and also going over characters and such, and also maybe you guys can help me with a little bit of backstory lore. Okay, so right now I'm using the latest version of Unity. I have the 5th edition rule set loaded. In my library, I have Rob Tui's coding effects and some of his magic items that are coded. I have some custom things from the DM's Guild. And I also have Reign of the Frost Maiden, some of the core rules, and some custom rules for that type of setting. What I've done here is I've created a character that isn't very traditional. It's a level 7 Warlock. Her name is Crystarra. And she's not typical. She lived a lifestyle of a hermit, and she is an Eladrin elf. So she's lived pretty much on her own most of her life. She is very charismatic. She's beautiful. She's pretty intelligent, smart, fairly fit and healthy, very quick. A little bit fragile though. She's not that strong. So her stats were just a point buy and then regular Eladrin ability score increases. So if I was going to play this character, to note that I have done some research. She's female. She's almost 29 years old in human years. She's lawful evil, and she follows the ideals of Auril, but she's actually under the control and under the thumb of Levistus. And Levistus is an evil, lawful evil devil. He rules the 5th level or layer, and she basically has a connection to him. That's where she gets her powers from. She's really into the winter. You could call her like a winter witch if you want. She has some problems. She's got power issues. She's just all around kind of a powerful warlock or a witch. So this is kind of like a picture of her, the snowy background. And this is her little monastery thing where she has a little lair, and it is up in the Frozen Far, in the far north of the Forgotten Realms. She has a little following. She has allies that are like frost giants and white dragons, sort of. And then she also had, at one time, she had a Mephit familiar. He's no longer around. And then she also has some Blade Reavers, which are a mercenary band of people that work for these kind of niche cults, and they go out and do her bidding. So she has her own little cult, her own following. She's very powerful, and she does have a goal. And one of the goals is to free Levistus from his prison. The only problem is that he is at odds with Osmodeus, and he has struggles from within. So she is his outside, his plane domain consort. So she's kind of a powerful pawn that he uses to do his bidding on the surface world in the prime material world. So if I'm going to play this character, it'll be very difficult to be in a party. However, I'm going to show you how this thing is set up. So her initiative is right here. It's +3. It's on the center of her character sheet. If I was going to play this character, I would definitely drag this down to the hotkeys. So when I need to roll initiative, it's right there. The next thing is her skills. She has an herbalism kit, but her most thing is Arcana, Deception, History, Insight, Medicine, Perception, Religion. So I'm definitely going to put Perception in the hotkeys. And one other. Probably History. Or Insight. There we go. So she's good at seeing if you're lying. What else? So those are her main skills that she, maybe Arcana, but that would be more in like role-playing situations. Same with Insight. Okay, so let's look at her abilities. All these abilities came over when I built her. Some of her class features and her specialties come from a book called, they are third party, and in this case, this book that I made her out of is Face of the Forgotten Realms 3. And what this does is it breaks down some different gods and also even some classes based off the worship of a certain god. So there's some cool features in there that you can customize your character with. So they're not all canon or they're not all exactly from the base core books, but they work pretty well. So some of the things that she inherited from worshiping or making this greater devil, he's like a demi devil. He's pretty high up there in the rankings. She earned a lot of cool things. So one of the things is she got an expanded spell list, and when you go to that list, it adds a few extra things in there that you don't normally get from the Warlock spellbook. So that's cool. She got an ability where she can be proficient with a rapier and in deception and insight. So she gained those two skills and the ability to use that one martial weapon, which is a rapier. She has a feature called Discovery. And what that does is it gives her a unique insight and discovery into something very powerful. And what I'm going to say for now is that when she was a child, she found an amulet or a talisman. It was very evil and powerful. She lived in some kind of secluded village, and she was lost during a storm. And when she found that talisman, she picked it up. And it was so beautiful and dazzling that she actually put it on. And when that happened, Levistus immediately began attacking her mind and seducing her into becoming his vassal. So she discovered that thing, and it's like a talisman of true evil. So when she was about 7 or 8 years old, this happened to her. So this fits in with her discovery. So she found this magical talisman, and it was almost like the heart of true winter, but it has an evil tone to it. So she put that on, and ever since then, she has been corrupted by the spirit and the will of Levistus. However, it didn't come without its benefits. She lost her family and she lost her identity, but she gained a new identity and she survived the cold weather. So she has another thing that she acquired during her career. Levistus told her where his magical blade was. So she quested for it when she was at 5th level. Now, she had some help acquiring it, so she wasn't able to do it herself. But she has the Rapier of the Frozen Prince, and it is a very powerful weapon. It's +2, which is unheard of, and she cannot be disarmed. So this is something that she inherited. Also, if you're attuned to it, you have resistance to cold damage, and you're immune to the effects of low environmental temperatures. So she gains a lot from wielding that rapier. So this is her rapier. As you can see, her rapier's magic. I put a little bit of snow effect on it so that it looks like it has some kind of magic coursing through it. And then she has this amulet that she wears. It's very powerful. The amulet gives her a couple boons. One, it gives her a D4 to add to any roll if she fails. And the other is like a Hail Mary, the thing that she can only use a few times. And it basically is opening up the ice and making it swallow somebody permanently. But if she uses that ability, she has to be very careful. So she's pretty powerful. Okay. So this is basically her build. It took me about an hour to build this character. So it wasn't too hard, but I had a lot of little things I had to do. So here she has these Eldritch invocations. So for her warlock like nature, instead of agonizing blast or one of the others, she has chilling blast. What happens is when she blasts them with her Eldritch ability, when she hits a creature, they cannot use their reaction until the end of, or they lose their reaction until the end of its turn. So that's one of the perks. The other thing I went with is Ice Sight. So she's able to see through 60 feet of solid ice as if it were glass. So I would notate that somewhere on her sheet. So I put it on her actions tab. So she has eyesight. Her pact boon has something to do with her talisman. And that's where I was telling you that talisman, it gives her a D4 to roll. And potentially it will give her success. And she can use that a number of times equal to her proficiency bonus. So she can use that 3 times a day. So I have that set to 3 uses. If she's using that rapier, she cannot be disarmed. She has cold resistance, and she doesn't suffer the effects of low ambient temperature. She has Fey ancestry, so she can't be charmed or put to sleep, or she has resistance to charm and she has advantage, or that sort of thing. So advantage on saving throws for charmed and no sleep. So no sleep magic. So she can't get put to sleep. Also, she has phase step, and when she goes into that, the person that sees or witnesses it could potentially be frightened. So I have to roll a saving throw, and anybody in the area would be frightened if they witnessed her phase step, if they're close enough to her. So she's a winter Eladrin. So when you phase step, one creature of your choice you can see within 5 feet before you teleport must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be frightened, or until the end of your turn. So it's a nice way to get the heck out of a situation. And she can do that once per day. It's kind of like a way to get out of trouble. She has Chill Touch, Chilling Blast, and Frostbite. All these are cast at 4th level. So it's just, they're pretty powerful. They do a lot of damage. All her spells that she gained are either snow or kind of debuff. So she has Dispel Magic, Bestow Curse, Suggestion, Shatter, Hex, Bane, things like that. And she has Ice Storm, and she has another spell called Elemental Bane. And what that does is it gives someone more susceptibility to the type of damage that she does. So that's pretty cool. Then she has her standard actions. So I'm going to compress these because I don't need them right now. So those are how you compress the spells. Her crossbow, she has 2 daggers and a rapier. So she's ready to go. I just kind of put this graphic together and put snow effects on it. So building her was kind of fun, but it was challenging because a lot of the coding or any of the automation was not there. So I had to build some of these, and they weren't that hard. Most of them were just notes. But like this Duelist Recourse, I had to build that. Eyesight was just a note. Pact Boon for the Talisman was pretty much just something I built. It wasn't that bad. Fey Ancestry is another thing that is already made. And so was the Fey Step. That comes from Rob Tui's coding effects. And then all the spells, of course. And I went into each spell and I set them up for 4th level use because she is a 4th level caster. So she's 7th level, but her spells go up to 4th level. So she casts everything at 4th level. So there's more duration and more damage. So she's pretty lethal in spells. I also have her on the combat tracker. So once you're done building, you put her on the combat tracker. I also put together a map last night with some line of sight. So I have the character built. I have my handouts and my props here. And then I'm going to bring up a map. This map was created by Zovia. It is called Snowy Home. And what I'm going to do is set this up like it's an encounter. And then once I have it set, then I'm going to build a little encounter to show you how this works. So I'm going to zoom to fill. And then when I'm getting ready to play, I'm going to unlock the map temporarily. And as you can see, I have clouds, snow, and this fire that I enhanced. And then there, of course, there's this the map itself. I put a grid on it, so it's this light blue grid. And if I go to line of sight mode, you'll be able to see where I added the different line of sight. So the next thing is I'm going to go to play mode now that it's done, and I'm going to turn on line of sight, which is this eyeball up here on the in this box. So it looks pretty dark. So what I'm going to do now is put Krista on the map, or Crystarra. And once you take possession of that character, you will notice the change. So that is basically that's your line of sight. Now I'm going to restretch the map and hit zoom to fill. So as she moves around, you can see that it gives off the shadow. So I put a little bit of shadow on the porch. Once I open that up, you can see the porch better. And then I open those up so you can actually see. And the door is closed. So I click on it It lets light in. Click on it again. Lets the light be blocked. I'm going to zoom in. And you can see where the line of sight is and the building. There's a shelf here, and a shelf here, and a couch, a study, and there's a fire. So if I zoom into this fire, you'll notice that the fire is moving because I actually put an effect on it. So it gives it that illusion of heat coming off the fire. On the other side, it's the same thing. Just got wood on the fire and it's glowing hot. This is like a little bench, a table so you can have dinner. And this is her bedroom. So she's staying at the cabin. So that's what's happening here. She's away from her fortress or wherever her lair is, and she's living temporarily at this cabin. Okay, so that's that. So if you have any questions or if you have anything that you haven't covered yet or something that you want to go over, we can do that. I'm not set on anything. This is an open discussion. This is Fantasy Grounds Unity character details, play, lore, and more. So I'm just kind of doing this off the seat of my pants here. So I'm not really looking to do anything specific other than show you this character build and show you how it works. I'm going to set up, I showed you the line of sight that I set up the night before. And then I'm now going to show you a little encounter. So I want to pick something kind of epic or fun to fight. So you guys can decide if you want what type of creature she's going to fight with. It can be good or evil. It could just be a bear. She is 7th level, so it can be kind of a tough fight if we want. I don't imagine we'd want a dragon, but I think maybe a pack of wolves or, I don't know, something that would make sense in this environment. Maybe some snowballs, a little pack of kobolds that live in the snow. Perhaps there would be a drake, like a small dragon. Or maybe there is a rival spellcaster or something. It just, to me, it would be fun to get your opinion and see what kind of encounter we want to build for this. I think it would be kind of fun. So I have the monster manual open, and if I wanted to create some kind of encounter, I can go to NPCs, and then I can search. So I go to by CR, and that'll break these down into their challenge ratings. I think no greater than a CR3 is a good example. Or if you're going to have a lower CR level than 2, we need to have more than 1. Maybe some skeletons. Battlehammer dwarf. There we go. So we can say there's a few battlehammers in the area, and they are not so happy with Krista or Crystarra. They have a multi-attack. They got hand axes and light crossbows. So I can make a little encounter with like 3 dwarves, and they try to, take her out. Maybe they're in the area. Yeah, drakes are cool. Yeah, let's take a look at the drake. So I'm going to go to the drake. And here's an ice drake. What do you know? So this has a capital D for the token. So I'm definitely going to replace that. There's no way a nice, cool monster like that is just going to have a damn letter token. So this is a pretty good fight for her. it's like a level 3 creature, so that's perfect. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first make an encounter. So I'm opening up the encounter areas, and I'm going to make my own group. So hit edit groups, hit this plus button. I'm going to call it winter theme fights. And now I'm going to add the actual encounter. And I'm going to drag the Drake over there. So maybe the smell of food or the fire attracted it. And then I'm going to hit refresh. Yeah, it's a CR1 creature, so it's not too bad. I mean, this will be a good fight. And then we will take this and lock it. And then if we wanted to make it fancier instead of just this, definitely change its thing to hostile. And we're going to change its token here. So instead of doing it at the NPC level, which changes it forever basically, we're going to change it at the encounter level. So this is a temporary change for a token. So I'm going to go to assets, and I just happen to have a really cool Ice Drake. So here's the Ice Drake stat block, or the encounter. And I'm going to go to my port token section, which I'm in right now. And I'm going to go to the data folder, which is the higher level folder. And Bernardo Hasselman has made me some really cool tokens. And I have one set up for my winter world that I'm working on. And it is a Drake. So he has a Frost Salamander and an Ice Drake. The Ice Drake, I actually had that commissioned. So I want to use that, and I drag and drop and replace this main token up here. You have to unlock it first. So now it will have the new token. So I'm going to lock this. I'm going to put it on the map somewhere, pin the encounter. That way I can get to it easier. And when I'm ready, then I will just open up the encounter, click the down arrow, which will add it to the combat tracker. And it's already set to be hostile. So now it is on the combat tracker. It's not visible yet, but it's on the combat tracker. And then I'm going to I can place it ahead of time too. So let me erase that. So I can take the Ice Drake, the actual token itself, and drag and drop it on the map. So let me see what kind of... Once you close the encounter, it will disappear. Let me see his stat block. What is it? Is it a large creature or is it medium? Medium. So that's why it doesn't look too big. Okay, so that's fine. Once I close this encounter though, this thing is going to disappear. I'm going to make his token a little bigger. There we go. And I'm going to hit the down arrow, which I would do. And now he's not visible anymore. So that is basically how you'd set that encounter up before anyone's on your table. When I take possession of him, that's when the line of sight shows up. All right, so we're getting ready to square off with this Drake. All right. So before I go into battle, or before I do anything else, you want to make sure if your character has all of its given passive abilities, and she does. She has her cold resistance, her Fey ancestry, the notes about her charm and sleep thing, and then that she cannot be disarmed. So those are her... she cannot be disarmed with that particular rapier. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to start her off on the porch. She hears a big ruckus outside. She comes outside, and she sees this big drake. He's hanging out, and he looks hungry, so he's not hidden or anything, but I want to look at his stat block. And it says that Snowborn, so it doesn't have difficult terrain. It has advantage on checks made to hide in the snowy terrain. Okay, so I'm going to roll a stealth check for this guy. I want to see if it's actually going to be hidden. So I'm going to go ahead and roll in the dice tower. And it rolled a 12. Well, her passive perception for her character is probably higher than that. So if you go to the front page, yeah, she knows he's there. So there's no point in keeping him hidden. So she spotted him, almost right away. So he's basically looking for a meal. So she says, "Oh, hello there." So she's not worried yet. She's going to stick around the house, though, in case she has to go inside. He has a 13 initiative, so I'm going to go ahead and let her roll initiative. And as I showed earlier, I drug her initiative roll down to the hotkeys. So she also rolled a 12. But her total is 12, so this guy gets to go first. So this is round 1. So now this guy is selected. So he has pack tactics, but he doesn't have any of his kin around, so that kind of puts that ability on hold. He's snowborn, so the terrain doesn't slow him down, and he has advantage on hiding, so that's good. He has a bite, and then he has a cone of cold breath, and it's a 20-foot cone. So he can't reach her yet, so that's basically, he's going to have to move closer or stay where he is. Of course, he's going to move closer. He can move 30 feet. So in order to show movement, I first want to make sure my options are set correctly in the options menu. So I have this set to variant for diagonal movement, and I'm going to right click on the map, or you can unlock this and click here for toggle token lock, and that'll lock the tokens so your players can't move wherever they want during combat. You can also see there's a little status here. He's immune to cold, and he's green, so he's healthy. So I'm going to move him. In order for me to move him as a NPC to emulate the movement, I need to hold down the Alt key. All right, he moves up here. And now he has the opportunity to use his breath. So if I hold down the control key and I click on Crystarra, it shows 20 feet. So from his mouth to her is within range. Now, if you were unsure about that, you can right click on the map, go to pointers, draw a cone, or use the cone shape, and there's the 20 feet. So she is absolutely in range. So that's just a way to figure out, where she is. All right, so now that she's in range, he's going to kind of saunter up there and blow this cold, cold breath. He doesn't realize who he's dealing with. This is Crystarra, the Snow Witch, so she doesn't take a lot of damage from snow-based attacks. So first of all, she has to make a saving throw. So she makes a dex save, which means she rolls out of the way or something. That will basically negate half the damage. Plus, she has the immunity or not immunity, but the resistance. So she'll only take half damage again, so very little. So she succeeded. So she's only going to take half damage. Now I'm going to drag and drop the cold damage on her. And she only took half of that. So she only took 3 points of damage out of 6 possible. So she would have probably had about 12 points of damage if she didn't have any of those. But being that she's who she is, with that blade, it helps her resist the cold. And she's already a snow Laerun, so it's not really affected by that. And then it's been used, so it will try to recharge. So it has a little note here on the recharge. So every round it'll check. Rolls above a 5, it will recharge. So that was her first attack. So she says, "Oh, we don't want to play nice, huh?" So now it's her turn. So I go onto her actions tab. And I think I want to do my cantrip, which is this chilling blast. So I'm going to first cast it, and it's 120 feet, and I get 2 of them. So I'm going to do it twice. So the first one just blasts them right in the face, and it does 2d6 cold, or excuse me, 1d10 force. So that hurt. And now my next attack. And that also hit, so he just got blasted twice in the face. So it was more like a cool blast of force. So kind of like I don't know, almost like wind going in his face. So that hurt. Can I have a code to do myself? What do you mean by that? Can you have a code to do myself? I'm not sure what you're getting at. You have to be more elaborate. You have to first state what you want it to do, and then also figure out how it affects Fantasy Grounds. But if you know exactly what you're trying to do and what's the context of it, I can help you. So now, but yes, you can make your own codes if you know what you're doing. So now that she's blasted him a couple times, she is going to open the door and move inside. So 1, 2, or you hold down the Alt key. So she's moved away. So that is her turn. She has some bonus actions, but she didn't use them. And I think that's her turn. So I'm going to go ahead and pass her turn. Now she just used a cantrip, so that wasn't a very powerful spell, but it was enough to hurt that Drake. Okay. So his thing was recharged. So when I hit the next turn, it rolled a d6 and it rolled a 5. So now he has that blast again. So he's going to move forward. Barely fit through the doorway. I don't know why she didn't lock the door. But nonetheless, he is going to use his Cold Blast again. And she's going to have a little bit of cover because of the couch. So -2. He has to blast through the couch. So now I'm going to roll for the save. And this time she failed, but she still has that resistance, so we'll see what happens. That hurt. So she took a lot of damage on that one. Ouch. So I look at her sheet. She still has a lot of hit points left. And that really pissed her off, so I think she's going to dig deep. So she has a spell that's high level. It's called Shatter. So she'll use up one of her pact magic or one of her spell slots. And it is pretty powerful. So Shatter is a second level spell. So I'm going to first roll this cast button on her, and this is a saving throw. So I have to drag and drop it on the dragon. Or on the drake. And she failed. So what a waste of a spell. So she went to go cast it, and she's probably too nervous, and she screwed up the spell. She tried to cast it and didn't work. So he saved, basically. It says for the shatter, there's a sudden noise, it's 10-foot area. A creature has to make a save, or half as much on a successful one. So he's still going to take some damage. It's just that the couch and his location probably helped absorb some of the sound. So he's still going to take some damage, just not as much. So 4d8 thunder. Youch. So he is now heavily damaged. So that thunder damage kicked his butt. So luckily she has spells that are other than stuff that's like cold. So that takes her other spell. So now all she has left is cantrips and her regular spells. And now she's going to move this way. So she moved over by the fire. And he's over here in this other side of the house. So that is her turn. So the Drake is going to move. So is he going to go this way or this way? I think he's kind of stupid, so he's going to go around. So he's chasing her around the living room. And he doesn't have his blast, so he's pretty much done. And it did not recharge this time. Great. So he won't have it again till the next round. All right, Crystarra is going to again use her chilling blast on this guy. So here is a ranged spell cast. And she missed, so the Drake kind of dodged out of the way. So now she's going to move further back into the cabin. So she's trying to get away. Ah, the breath recharged. So he's going to continue pursuing her. So there's still a wall dividing them. So he doesn't have any reach to her, so that's his turn. Okay, so what she's going to do is she's going to cast, let's see. She has this and this. Let's see. You know what? I think she's going to go in her room. So the door is open now. And she's going to drop down into her room. And shut the door. So she's in her bedroom now. And she shut the door behind her. And she's going to pull out a rapier and be prepared for if he tries to come in there. If she has to, she will do a phase step and get away or whatever if she can. So we'll see. How do you split the movement? Okay, so Michael, when you have the creature selected or whatever you're moving, all you have to do is let go of the button, and it will stay in tracking mode. And those are waypoints that it will create. So if you have to do a fancy movement that goes around corners, just let go of your control key or your alt key, and it'll keep drawing. So you don't have to hold it down the whole time. So hopefully that helps you. I'll illustrate that shortly. So the Drake, I'll do it with him right now. So it's the Drake's turn. So he's going to move closer to her. So I'm holding down the alt key. I moved him the first 5 feet. Now I don't have to hold the alt key anymore. Now I can move him over to the right. And that stops. So that's how that waypoint was created. Now he's at the door. And he's going to try to break the door down. So he is basically going to back up and get ready to ram the door. So that's his turn. I hope that helps a little. So you don't have to hold down the control key the whole time. You only have to start, once you start the movement, you can let go of the control key and it will make those points wherever you stop. If you hold down the control key the whole time, it'll just make a diagonal line. So you want to hold the alt key, and then when you're done moving in that direction, you let off of the alt key, and then you move on to another direction. So that's how that's done. All right, so now that that's happened, he's getting ready to knock that door down. So he's going to back up. Well, it's her turn now, I think. Yeah. So I think she's just going to prepare herself. So she's going to have her rapier ready. I'm going to click on ready action. And her action is, if he comes to that door, she's going to attack him. So that's what she's doing. So if he breaks that door down and comes through it, She is going to spear him with that rapier. So that's her turn. So she's kind of readying an action. And she's claiming that that's the trigger for her reaction. All right, the Ice Drake is moving forward. He's basically charging forward, and he's trying to bash the door down. So I think the cabin is a little rickety, so if he rolls a 10 or higher on a strength check, he can get through it. He'll knock it right off the hinges because of his sheer size. So he's pretty tough. So I'm going to make a strength check. And that should determine if he rolls a higher number than 10. Oh my god, he rolled a 20. So he crashes through the door. And since he made that 20 roll, I'm going to cancel out her ability to react. So in other words, she was having a reaction ready for him. But since he broke through and he was ready for her and he knew what was going on, he knocked the door so hard it bumped into her and it almost threw her off balance. So he just busted through that door. So that's what I'm going to give him for rolling a 20. So it's going to cancel out her extra attack. That's all it's going to do. And it threw the door off its hinges. So she can no longer close the door. All right, so now she is going to have to do a regular attack. And it's on her turn. So on her sheet, she has a rapier. It's a one-handed weapon. It does 1d8 plus 5 magic damage. So it's pretty badass. So I'm going to attack the creature with it. And it's a rapier, so it's dexterity based. So she rolled a total of 20, which is definitely a hit. And now she'll take that rapier and kind of just sink it into his neck. She did a total of 12 points of damage, so that really hurt this creature. All this kind of reddish purple blood's coming out. So she wounded it pretty bad. So she's going to move over here. She's not going to do a provoke attack because she's still near him. And that's her turn. Okay. So now he is going to retaliate with a bite. So he snaps down and he takes a chomp, and it definitely grabs her thigh, and he starts shaking. Almost like an alligator. And he just did some damage to her, so that hurt. That was pretty gnarly. So she just got bit in her thigh. So now her thigh is all messed up. So he's got a taste for her blood now, so he's excited. All right, so she's going to return the blow. Ah, she rolled a 1. Basically, she drops her rapier, and for the rest of her turn, she needs to recover it. Or she can move and leave her rapier on the floor. Or she can do a bonus action and basically teleport out of the way. I think she's just going to pick it up and try to deal with him. So that's her turn. So she basically lost her attack. The Ice Drake is, again, adamant about biting her. This time, let's see, did he hit? Nope, she dodged out of the way, so that's good. So his cold jaws came snapping down and dodged. Yeah, gnarly. Gnarly, dude. Okay, so that takes care of how the exchange and melee is going. So he took a bite. She jumped out of the way or moved aside before he could bite her. So she pulls back in, spins around, kneels into her attack, and sidesteps him and comes back down with her rapier from a backwards motion and tries to stab him in the arm or in his shoulder. And she was able to connect. And all of a sudden, this creature lets out a little sigh. It sounds more like a growl. So it's not really little. And it thumps heavily onto the ground. So she defeated the ice drake. She herself took some damage. So what I'm going to do is say that that she's going to take some rest. So she's going to go dress her wounds. I'm going to give her a short rest. I'm going to go to menu, rest, short rest. And that will give her a chance to use her hit die recovery. So naturally she heals 9 points of damage. She's not as wounded. And let's call that a stream unless anyone else has any questions. So that was basically how I ran the character. Yep, she's now called Limey. I've been rooting for the Drake since the first breath weapon. Let's go Drake. Yeah, he was pretty tough actually, but she's not a slouch. She's a 7th level warlock that has a lot of cold-based immunities and such. And then also, she just had more hit points and more firepower than he did. So that basically is why she won that. Now, if there was 2 Drakes, that might have been different. So there's a huge difference between just having 1 and then having 2. So when that was, when this encounter is done, I would pull the encounter up, go to the party sheet. I have to make sure she's on there first. And then I go to the experience area and I drag and drop this into there. And then I would click award. She would get 200 XP for it. And now she's resting. Now I'm going to rest her for the rest of the day. I'm going to roll to see if there's any encounters. No. So now I'm going to erase this cone. So I'm going to go to pointers and remove pointers. And then I'm going to go to the menu up here in the combat tracker and click on rest and do a long rest. And this recovers her hit points and it recovers her usages on her spells and stuff. So she's got all her spells back now. And when you have a bunch of spells like I do, you can compress these sections so that it doesn't take up too much room on your sheet. And then you just open these up when you need them. So that is basically how that works. So the movement, again, the line of sight becomes active once the token's active. To emulate the movement as a game master, you have to hold the Alt key. And also you right click on the map and make sure the tokens the token lock ability is on. But you hit the Alt key. Now I've moved her 10 feet and I let go of the Alt key, so that actually emulates her stopping. There she stopped at 30 feet. Now I'm going to approve the movement. Now if your character does this, so in other words, if they move through a tree, first of all, they should lose 5 or 10 feet. But if they do something like this to get to the other side, you can reject it. You say, no, you go around it or you lose 10 feet of movement. So either way, they have to lose movement. So that now you would hit the Alt key. That is how she should have moved. Now you can move these waypoints as long as the total number here doesn't change. So you could go like that. But if you move it there, that means she went too far out. So I'm going to leave it there. So that's how you want to move the character. So you can plot a path if it gets really complex, like you got a bunch of combatants. And now you would approve it if it was approvable. So in this case, it's going to be, I just fixed it. So now you are back in business. So that's basically the movement part. As the game master, though, you have to hold down the Alt key initially to get it started. Same thing with NPCs. As a player, you just pick up your token and move it. But just remember that when you move, if you stop and then you go to the next direction, if you keep holding the Alt key, it's not going to create the waypoints. If you let go, then you're going to get the waypoint. Yes. So does it keep a running total of what the players have done? Yes, it does. The party sheet is exactly what that's for. It bring that back up for you. So what I'm going to do is bring up the party sheet. This thing does a lot. So it keeps track of all your party members. You can do group roles from here. You can have an overview of your, their hit points and hit die and their stats. You have an area to manage inventory. You have an order sheet where you can keep track of, like theater of the mind type stuff, or what their formation is like. And then your experience area is where you award encounters and you award the quest items. And if you want to know what it is, yes, you pop it up, it shows you what the item was. And then you'll know which encounters that you've already completed. And there's a little check mark by it that says awarded. So if you've already awarded it, it's not going to award it again. So that's a handy thing. So the party sheet's your best friend for a game master. Yes, that's what I've done, is use it kind of like a journal. There's also a calendar that you can set up that can be used as a journal as well. And you can actually tie those together somewhat. So there's a lot you can do with Fantasy Grounds once you learn the stuff underneath the hood. The one thing you do need to master, and I don't care if you're a player or a game master or even a developer, is you want to get used to creating characters. That tends to be where most people go wrong. That's where it breaks. So when you actually start playing, and as you're playing along, you're going to realize that some things don't work or that something isn't calculated right. That's when you start noticing how broken it can get. So just try your best to learn how to make characters. And that way you can help your players if they have problems, and you can create more accurate characters. So that is just a suggestion, a tip. It's not the end of the world if something's broken. I mean, you can always go back and remake the character or try to fix it. But that's my advice to anyone who's using Fantasy Grounds, is learn to use the interface, but also learn to use the characters and how they work. And more than just one type. So if you're the game master, you better know how warlocks work, how wizards work. You got to kind of get a feel for that. it's kind of hard to do that when you're not a player. But even if you're not playing, you can still build the characters correctly. So, and you won't know that until you start playing. But back to Crystarra, she was a young child who had recovered this ancient relic, and it was an evil talisman. And that's how she became this Winter Witch Warlock type. So she connects everything that happens to her as a great cosmic plan. So she thinks no matter what happens to her, that it was something to do with a big plan. And then she's kind of oblivious to any sort of etiquette or social expectations because she's been in isolation for a long time. So she's very rude and upfront, and she doesn't care and doesn't think about what she's doing in regards to etiquette. Her main thing is power. Now that she's corrupted, she really wants the power. A lot of her initial spirit is gone. The solitude and the contemplation of what she wants to do has, towards her mystical and magical power, has kind of corrupted her. And wearing that necklace and using the implements of evil from her patron, Levistus, has definitely messed her mind up. She had made this discovery, which is the amulet. If that ever would come to light, it could bring ruin to the world. So she's kind of helping people in a way by keeping it to herself. She thinks that by having it, that no one else will have it, and that it won't cause much harm. So she thinks if it's in the wrong hands, that it's going to ruin the world. And she might be right. Her isolation gave her insight into a great evil that only she can destroy. So at some point in her career, she thinks that she's going to be able to destroy the artifact, which she may be wrong, or she might have to get help. But she has the artifact and she wears it. But for now, she just harbors like this bloodthirsty thoughts, and her isolation and her, her meditations and stuff have kind of failed her in having her rationalize it. So she's kind of messed up in the head. She's very beautiful. I mean, she's high charisma, very well spoken as far as, how she speaks. So she can charm your pants off, basically. She's basically a high level spellcaster, and she's got the beauty to go with it. So her whole thing is winter. She's an Eladrin. So she's not fully elf, but she's not human. She's kind of like this in-between type thing. Not a half-elf, though. So she thinks the winter is a season of contemplation and dolor. The vibrant energy of the world slumbers at this time, and she believes that she's the caretaker of the ancient relic that she wears in the frozen far, which is far to the north of the 10 towns even. Some shaping events that happen is she's no stranger to betrayal. So when she was lost and no one found her, she was scared and she thought that her people left her there, but she was totally wrong about that. It was just a storm kind of covered up her tracks. The North is a cold place in more ways than one. Betrayal is inevitable. Levistus knows this. I know this. Ensuring you get better results than your opponent is the key to power. So she's got kind of a messed up mindset. As a year of this, for instance, if you used her in the Frost Maiden scenario, I dug up some lore that says if you don't solve the module, you don't dispel the intense winter, you don't complete the module successfully, after about a year of the intense cold, Levistus will be able to open an icy portal between Icewind Dale and his lair of hell. He will send ice devils under his control. However, if Sunblight and his clan survive the adventure, eventually Asmodeus will take control of them. And through them, he'll try to get a foothold in Toril for the Infernal Lord. So eventually Levistus will be opposed, but you'll just replace one big bad for another, and then you'll have Crystarra as an NPC or a character that's trying to ensure that still happens. During the quest phase early in the adventure, players will end up at the castle of Caer-Dineval. It is being run by the Knights of the Black Sword, who are actually cultist worshippers, worshipping an archdevil, which is Levistus. So Levistus rules the 6th layer of hell, I said 5th earlier, and is trapped in an ancient ice prison there. The proper speaker, or the speakers in 10 towns, are kind of like the mayors, is being held inside this temple-like castle type thing by the cultist knights. So no matter what your players do in that particular scenario in the Frostmaiden, Levistus could be a future problem depending on how your actions end the adventure. So she kind of has some loose tie-ins with the setting. There's another faction, Cryonax, who's like an elemental demon of ice. He's counting the Frozen Far as one of his territories. So the Cryonites are actively seeking out Auril and her followers, known to be haunting the region and experimenting with the black ice. And that black ice was discovered and brought up in the Icewind Dale series, or in the Legacy of the Shard series. Black ice is seen as an abomination to the purity of Cryonax's chosen element, and they would see its influence curbed and the substance itself eradicated. So the followers of Cryonax would not be happy with whoever dabbles with the black ice, whether good or bad. Levistus is basically this rakish archdevil. He offers his powers akin to his nature for a pact. You get skill with the blade, tongue, and ice. You are his eyes and ears in the mortal realms, free to do as you please with the gifts bestowed. You understand they were granted with the intent that you work toward one small, almost inconsequential thing that a being of his vast power could want, and that's freedom. Freedom from his eternal imprisonment in the ice of Stygia. Certainly no explicit requirements were outlined, but the sinister aspect to your patron suggests you may have to have required more than what you bargained for, and the hidden price than you expected. So that amulet is actually not a good thing. So she has it, and she wears it. It's actually part of her tiara. It's a little gemstone-like thing, a talisman, and it's actually a talisman of true evil, but it's tied in with Levistus, and it's very rare, and it has some unique qualities to it, but I mean, she's still unlocking some of its abilities, but she has it in her inventory and she wears it. I should have it equipped actually, but she has it on her, and it's a nasty thing. If anyone touches it, they take a bunch of damage. Anybody but her, basically. One of her followers can touch it, but anybody else that's not part of it is going to get hurt. The other thing is she can open up a crack or a hole in the ice and basically banish somebody from the prime material plane, and they're destroyed forever. So I don't even think there's a saving throw for it. I think it's just, what does it say? Okay. Yeah, there's a fissure that opens up. You have 6 charges. If you're wearing or holding it, you can choose to use one action or one charge from the talisman and choose one creature you see within 120 feet of you if they're on the ground. If the target is good alignment, a fissure opens up under it. The target has to succeed on a 20 dex save or fall into the fissure and be destroyed, leaving no remains. When the fissure closes, there's no trace of existence. When you expend the last charge, the talisman basically erodes and it kind of melts. So he's pretty nasty legacy that she has. Awesome. Do the players have the same ability to see their running combats too? Sort of. They don't get access to the party sheet so much. But in the chat log and if you do a journal, they can see that. Great job with the backstory and role playing. Yeah, so the backstory is important when you build this character, because before it was just a warlock, right? And they might be from, whatever town you designate. But if you build it beyond there, what you get is this creativity that I think a lot of people miss out on. So if you look at these maps here, I've created these beautiful like backdrops. It's inspired me to make more stuff for it. I even had the sword here. This is her blade that she quested for. This is Levistus' blade that she's borrowing. If he ever returns to the prime material plane, he's going to take it back. But that's his blade that she's wielding right now, or it was his blade. The other thing is, having this kind of wintry theme here. That helps with the mood of things. So this is where she lives. It's these 5 pentagram-shaped buildings, and they have this little gazebo in the center. And then inside of each one of these are different areas that she lives in. And then they have basement areas too. So she has a lair that's like this. And where she lives in the Frozen Far, these trees are actually all frozen solid. There's no branches. And she has a white dragon that lives up there, a young one, that she's been feeding and talking to guard her lair. And he stops by every now and then. So she's a pretty powerful NPC or player character. So she has this talisman that corrupted her when she was little. And over the years, she's gained a lot of power. She has followers. She has some unique abilities. She has a feature that is pretty interesting. It's called the Duelist's Recourse. So when she reached 6th level, she can use a reaction to add her charisma modifier to her armor class for a single attack. So if I was worried about I could have used that actually during that fight, but I have a Duelist Recourse. So this will go on to her for a round, and then once her turn is done, it should technically be removed. So if I go to Duelist Recourse, I'm going to open up this, and I think I have this set wrong. It should be on next roll or on next action. So that's basically when it expires. I think I got it right, on next action. So when she, uses it, it'll basically come off. Or you can come up here in the effects and manually take it off as a player. You agree with chaotic? Oh yeah, chaotic. Yeah, I thought you meant chaotic alignment. You're talking to this chaotic good gaming guy. I don't know who that guy is. Anyways, thanks for stopping in. Hopefully that clears up a few things for you. Just remember to have that kind of theme. And if you look at the overlay that I have, everything on there is kind of a snowy white and blue. So when you go to that extra mile, it really helps. So I took and adjusted the colors on here to give it that bluish color. It kind of gives it more of a theme instead of just having some random stuff or nothing at all. And kept most of the screen visible. So, I got most of this area, at least 2/3 of it's dedicated to Fantasy Grounds. I just have this strip on the side, which I really don't even need. And then I have this little strip on the bottom. So if you're going to build an overlay or some kind of fancy frame, try to keep it minimal as possible. I should expand the frame to the left a little and then up to the top a little and give it just a little bit more space. So there's a lot of wasted space in there. So if I wanted to change that, I can go in and stretch that out a little bit more and also stretch the screen so that it fits in the area better. But for the most part, the theme and the lore and the handouts and the characters and the sorts of things that you go through when you're building a character, especially like something like this is very high level and such. So you want to have some lore. You don't want to just make a character and hope for the best. It's good to have the backstory. Yeah, you too, buddy. Sense of humor. Okay, so I think that will be about it. If there's any questions or comments or problems or complaints, please let us know in the notes or ask, and I'm going to wait a few more minutes. I have dinner coming up on me. So if anybody wants me to show them something or go over something, I can do that for the time being. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to call it a night. Going once. So if anybody knows, Chaotic Good Gaming is a friend of ours through Fantasy Grounds College. He is also a administrator. He's kind of a shoe-in. He joined us 4 or 5 months ago, and he's moved up in the ranks, and he's doing a lot of good things for the college. We have a traveler month coming up in January that's shaping up really nicely. And I think after that, we are working already on another rule set, which I won't announce yet until we get a little bit further along, but there is a schedule. So every month we are making a new rule set as a featured rule set. So if you like Traveler, or if you like last month we did Pathfinder. Oh, 9 months. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Time flies. You could have had a baby by now. So yeah, the community is growing, and we have a lot of good positive things. We're working on a relationship with Smiteworks, and we're also working on a relationship with the publishers, and of course all of you. So without you guys, this would be nothing. It wouldn't matter as much. So thanks for supporting us, and we do have a Patreon. We have this. I'm glad you tossed me the link for FGC. This gave me a lot to look at for some of the questions I had. Yeah, that's this whole channel has different things that will teach you. So if you want, we're doing a series every other week, Lady Shell and I. It's called Fantasy Grounds A to Z, and it goes from the beginning all the way up to something like this. We're not done with it. We got another week and a half, but we just did a show Sunday, and we're gonna do another one in a couple weeks after Christmas. So the show is every other week. It's roughly an hour or less, except for the last one we did was almost 2 hours because it was combat. But we're doing a full-on series from setting up and getting people connected, managing your account, all that stuff, all the way up to playing and running. And that's kind of why I do these too, because not everyone is aware that we have those. But now if you subscribe to the channel, we're putting up content at least once a week. I try to put up more things like this without really planning it. I just throw it together, and when I'm inspired, and I'll go on and try to show some things, and basically just share what I'm working on. And it gives you guys an insight into how to do this stuff and how to pull it together. So it really helps you guys watching videos, taking classes, getting familiar with the terminology and what tools you need, learning who are the main people developing and publishing, and also doing things like this. If you ever want to join our college, starting in January or even now, we are recruiting. So we're going to put out a recruiting campaign to get more people in to help teach the software. So if you're interested in that, hit us up in our Discord, get a hold of myself or any of the admins, and let us know what you want to do. Or you can just come in and learn and, move along. All right, I think I said enough. So you guys have a good night. I'm going to call it, and we'll see you around. Happy gaming, everyone, and happy holidays.